Well, hello again. Peter Saturday from Universal Dork, back again today to talk about highly underseen and underrated gem of a sequel to a 1988 cult classic horror film, 976 Evil. So that film was directed by Robert Englund. We're not talking about that one today, though. Today we're talking about 976 Evil 2, The Astral Factor. The original 976 Evil is pretty well known because Robert Englund, you know, Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, it's one of his few directorial efforts. So he directed that film in 1988, and, you know, around that time period, we were all really excited to see what he was going to do. In fact, we all sort of thought and were expecting that 976 Evil was going to be kind of like something on par with Nightmare on Elm Street, and that was not the case. Even though over the years I've definitely grown to really enjoy 976 Evil, it definitely missed the mark for me. It wasn't until maybe a few years ago that I actually really started appreciating that film. So it's one of his few directorial efforts. He did a couple episodes of the Freddy's Nightmare TV series. That series is kind of well known as having stories that deviate from the Freddy Krueger plotline. Now, that show kind of plays out more like a Tales from the Dark Side, but there are a few episodes that actually feature Freddy Krueger himself in, you know, his traditional role and star, Robert Englund. There's a couple like Halloween episodes that are pretty good, and then the first two episodes, part 1 and 2, kind of a backstory of Freddy Krueger, and he actually plays the character of Freddy Krueger in there as well. Pretty interesting, still not the best. A lot of people love that series. I've tried to love it over the years, and I've just never really found it to be very consistent. But he also did his third directorial effort in 2008, a movie called Killer Pad that I've never seen before. I'm definitely going to give that one a whirl. And though admittedly I'm not a gigantic fan of 976 Evil, I do really enjoy some of the special effects and some of the practical effects in the movie, and I like the general story idea of it. I feel that the way it was executed was done a little bit flat. I feel like it sort of drags in certain moments of the film, and I feel like the characters are played a little too straight and flat as well. Just the whole vibe of the film really kind of suffered, I think, from kind of bad pacing. The characters in general could have really been amped up a little bit to give it more of that vibe of a super fun 80s horror film like, you know, the original Nightmare on Elm Street or some of the sequels like Part 3 or something like that. And luckily, 976 Evil 2 kind of does that. It goes in the direction that I really wanted the original film to go in. So 976 Evil 2 was also originally going to be directed by Robert Englund, but apparently Jim Wynorski stepped in. It's not quite clear what there was, if there was a rift there, or maybe he didn't like the plot line. I'm not really sure, but Jim Wynorski stepped in and did a fantastic job. So for some of you that might not know who Jim Wynorski is, he did the movie Chopping Mall, which is hands down one of my favorite 1980s horror films. And over the years, he's done a lot of movies that I really enjoy, though he is not the most solid director. In fact, he's done a lot of stuff that just flat out sucks. He's very inconsistent. But when he is on and when he hits a home run, he hits a home run hard. He did another film that I did a video for, this film, Hard to Die, which I would say is just as good as Chopping Mall. That's debatable amongst fans of, you know, cult horror films. I know that's a pretty bold statement, but I would say check this movie out, Hard to Die. It is also a horror film. It's kind of disguised here as more of an action film. So yeah, check that video out. I'll put that at the very end of this video so that you can just click on it to check out the full assessment of Hard to Die. So yeah, Wynorski does a fantastic job here directing the sequel that I think is actually better than the original. I know that is also a bold statement, but I will say for me, 976 Evil 2, The Astral Factor, is a ton of fun, and it goes the distance in a lot of ways that the original should have. And Jim Wynorski, the director here, is known for his kind of over-the-top, really cheesy style effects that he does and ridiculous plot lines, tons of nudity. But 976 Evil 2 definitely plays it pretty straight. But he does incorporate some of his classic tropes, sexy ladies and nudity into the very beginning of the film. Of course, he couldn't resist it. So this thing, I believe, is legitimately trapped on VHS. This, I guess, would be probably one of the closest things you would get to like a legit DVD release of it. And I mean, I love these little like horror DVDs that you can find probably at thrift stores now. They're just, you know, no one wants them. But look at the lineup on this thing. We've got Waxwork. We've got 976 Evil 2. We've got Ghoulies 3. Ghoulies Go to College. The Unholy, which is a great priest-centric horror film. We've got Chud 2, which is a pretty fun Halloween-themed sequel to the original Chud. We've got Chopping Mall on here as well. I mean, come on, Slaughter High. Great lineup there. Great slasher film, and class of 1999. I mean, this is a fantastic collection of movies on DVD. I absolutely love these little horror collections, these cheapo things that they used to sell in like bargain bins at like Walmart and stuff like that. So now the original plot of 976 Evil features Stephen Jeffries. He's from Fright Night, you know.
You're so cool, Brewster.
He starred in the original 976 Evil. And in that movie, he calls a horror hotline. It's called the Horoscope. And he is possessed by some evil forces on the other end of this phone hotline that were all so popular in the 1980s. In fact, there were some really great ones. There was ones where you could call up Freddy.
So dial this number now if you dare. Tell them Freddy sent you.
Of course, there were like the party hotlines, and there were like, you know, the phone sex, sexy women hotlines that you could call late at night. That sort of stuff was really mysterious back in the 1980s and early 90s. As teens, I remember I really wanted to call these numbers all the time, but they were fucking so expensive. If you called those things, you would get caught by your parents and you'd get grounded for weeks. Because when that phone bill came, it was astronomical, the amount of money that they were charging per minute. Was it worth it? Probably not. Stephen Jeffries' character in the first movie basically becomes a demonic teenager. He starts changing physically, and then he actually goes after these bullies who have been picking on him all year and gets revenge. But in the first film, he's got sort of a co-star character, this guy Spike, played by Patrick O'Brien, and he solidifies these two films, connecting them seamlessly. He returns as Spike and as one of the main characters in 976 Evil 2, so it's got that continuity. Follows Spike after the events of the first film, and he's kind of riding around on his motorcycle. He's sort of like this teen motorcycle dude, and he's kind of traveling cross country. I think he's trying to make sense of this 976 Evil phenomenon that's going on all over the place. Kind of like he's almost like Mike from Phantasm or something, going along with Reggie Bannister. So he's like on the road, stopping all over the place, and he's being haunted by these visions of the 976 Evil hotline, and he ends up in a small town eventually. And he meets this girl named Robin, played by this girl, Debbie James. And Debbie James, at the time, was pretty well known for her 1990 win of the TV show Star Search.
Hi, Debbie. Hi, darling. Welcome back to Star Search. Now tell me, what has your appearance on Star Search meant to you?
Well, there's so many cherished memories that I hold dear to my heart through the past few months that I've been appearing on the show.
So she won that competition, and then that kind of opened her career to 976 Evil 2, and then eventually starred in the bona fide cult classic film. Know a lot of really big fans of this one, 1995's Bigfoot, The Unforgettable Encounter. That is a beloved classic amongst fans of the big guy. So essentially, Spike is on the road, and he ends up going to the small town because he catches wind of a supernatural serial killer that's on the loose. The whole town is in a frenzy. The police are going nuts trying to figure out who did it. They eventually track down the killer, and it ends up being this teacher from the high school that Robin goes to, this guy, Mr. Grubeck, who uses astral projection to murder his victims. And I've got to state here right now that astral projection is one of the things that really drew me to this movie. I'm a huge fan of stuff like astral projection and lucid dreaming, and I've actually over the years really delved pretty heavily into all of that stuff myself with some pretty astonishing results that happened. I'll get to that a little bit later. But that, of course, drew me into the plot of this film right away, and they utilize that really well in this to create this supernatural slasher who's able to, when he sleeps, send his astral body or his spirit body out into the world to do evil deeds for this satanic sort of entity that's on the other line of the phone, which apparently he called. He had that same problem that the teens and we did. He just could not resist calling that damn hotline. And I tell you, that stuff was always trouble back then.
Once again, foolish friends, Freddy Krueger is on your phone. Dial this number now. I've got some tales to tell. Freddy's favorite bedtime stories.
So this guy gets arrested, and he spends most of the movie laying around in his jail cell committing murders. Each time that he does, his face kind of starts deteriorating. It looks like he has a bad case of like mutant cold sores or herpes all over his body. That starts happening real quickly. His appearance starts to dwindle and decompose. And of course, I love slasher films, but if you add a supernatural element to the slasher to give him some kind of like superhuman powers, that just draws me in even more. I'm a gigantic fan of supernatural slasher films, and I really love these sort of lesser known supernatural slasher villains. This one has got a great one. So essentially here we follow Spike as he comes into the small town, immediately has a crush on this girl Robin that he meets in a diner, and then the two of them kind of team up to try to figure out just exactly what's going on as this guy in his jail cell seemingly is not the killer, and his astral spirit is out doing the dirty deeds for him. Eventually, Spike and Robin get trapped in his web of evil, and strange things begin to happen to them when they go to all these different locations in the city to where people get murdered, and they try to start solving this mystery. There's a lot of really fun, well-executed sequences of horror here. You know how like the Nightmare on Elm Street stuff has their classic scenes of like, you know, the Roach Motel and all of the stuff like that? This has got those things going on. They're not quite as impressive as the Nightmare on Elm Street films, but this one is really taking it to the level that I was hoping that the original 976 Evil would. And you know, as low budget as this thing is, it really pulls off some pretty fantastic action sequences as well as car chases that are really impressive. It's got stunts involving car crashes and stuff and giant explosions. There's a great scene at the end with a semi. There's some pretty solid kills in the movie as well. And there's some great sequences of the guy's body separating from him and flying all around and appearing different places and attacking people. The Slate River Killer, as he's called in here, he's able to use like, you know, inanimate objects against people. So like at one point, Spike is investigating things inside this house and he's sort of like fighting a refrigerator and freezer of the refrigerator as it opens, and it's like flinging TV dinners at him, and then, you know, turns a bunch of like M16 guns around and, you know, shoots at him. And there's most definitely a Scooby-Doo style mystery going on in the midst of all of this like cheesy mayhem that's happening all around the city. So Jim Wynorski here does a fantastic job directing this thing. I would say that this is one of his best films, honestly. He does a really incredible job when he is not going, you know, full on horn dog style. And I could tell from the beginning of 976 Evil 2, he was kind of leaning into that a little bit. I could tell he was wanting to go there because we start off with a couple scenes of nudity right off the bat. There's also some neat little Easter eggs kind of sprinkled about here that Wynorski included. There's a scene right in the opening with the girl in the swimming pool. There's a sign on one of the walls inside the high school that is promoting this play that's coming up that they're doing at school. And you can notice that it says the play will be directed by Joe Bob Briggs. And Roger Gorman, I think, is also listed on there, you know, referencing Roger Corman. And a real fun factoid here is that Jim Wynorski actually got Brigitte Nielsen, the lovely Brigitte, to make a cameo in this film in a pretty cool sequence where she's the owner of this occult bookstore and has a bunch of occult objects in it. Well, she makes an appearance in here interacting with the character of Spike. Now, the funny thing is that I read that Wynorski actually was able to get Brigitte to be in this film because he ran into her at a bar one night and they were playing pool and they decided to make a wager. So if Wynorski won the game, Brigitte would star in his film free of charge in a cameo. And if Wynorski lost, he apparently agreed that he would clean Brigitte's house in a maid outfit. Now, apparently the game was pretty close, and Wynorski ended up winning, and he got Brigitte to come work on the film for one day free of charge. So pretty awesome little story there that just adds to the charm of this film. And there's an awesome little sequence there with some pretty witty banter going on. Check this out.
You kind of remind me of Elvira on steroids.
Say the sweetest things.
And you also get an appearance by the lovely Monique Gabrielle, who appeared in other Wynorski films and films like Evil Tunes, which is one of my favorites as well. That's a real cheesy one that's definitely worth a watch. And then there's also a sequence in here that I've got to mention that is one of my favorite parts of the entire film, which is this merging of these two public domain films, so I understand why they chose them. Night of the Living Dead meets It's a Wonderful Life in this real unique and inventive little sequence here that they put together. Robin and her friend are sort of arguing about what they want to watch that night. One of them wants to watch It's a Wonderful Life. The other one wants to watch Night of the Living Dead. When Robin leaves the room, her friend gets sucked into the TV, and it's a merging of both of those worlds in a pretty seamlessly done sequence there as she's sort of sucked into the TV. So it does have that kind of like really cool, like Nightmare on Elm Street type sequences going on. This, I've got to say, is a very ambitious sequel, and I'm really glad that they utilized the actor from 976 Evil to bring him into this film to make it a legit sequel, giving it that connective tissue to the first. Like I said, I think that the sequel's even better, so it would be awesome to end the night with 976 Evil 2, which is even more fun than the original. And of course, like I said in the beginning, one of my favorite things about this film is the use of astral projection as a plot device. There are not enough movies out there that really involve a good astral projection or like lucid dreaming aspect to them. So I got into astral projection and, dabbling and trying astral projection for myself as an offshoot of something that I pretty much have done my entire life, which is lucid dreaming. Now, lucid dreaming is absolutely fucking amazing thing to do as well. Lucid dreaming is basically when you wake up inside of a dream and you realize that you're in the dream, but not just realize that you're in the dream and that's it, but you realize you're in the dream and you knowingly make decisions within the dream using your normal everyday consciousness. So it's like you're yourself, you're in the dream, you're making choices, you're talking to dream characters. In many cases, if you get really good at it in a lucid dream, you can control dream scenarios and storylines within the dreams as well. I could go on and on about my experiences with lucid dreaming. If you want to have one of the most absolutely mind-bending experiences of your entire life, dedicate a little bit of time into the practice of lucid dreaming. It will blow your mind. Now, I went sort of the next step, which was astral projection, because I got pretty good at lucid dreaming over the years. And in 2015, when my father passed away, I had been, researching already lucid dreaming and stuff like that. And there were theories that you could communicate with people who passed within a lucid dream. So I started attempting some of that stuff in my lucid dreams. I got really, really good at lucid dreaming where I could do it a few times a week. Wake up inside of my dreams and talk to actual characters or entities in the dream. Now, I'm not saying that they were real and not figments of my imagination or my mind creating this, but apparently when you're in REM sleep, your brain produces DMT, which is basically, the most powerful hallucinogen that they use for like ayahuasca and stuff. Your brain produces that. So it produces sort of this hyper-realistic scenario that creates dreams. But then when you lucid dream, you take it to the next level and things become 10 times more vivid and your consciousness is fully there. I would start doing these practices during the waking hours that would alert me to the fact that if I was in a dream or not. So I would do something like count my fingers 10 times a day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because what a lot of people don't realize, in dreams, your hands very rarely have 5 fingers. Maybe they'll have 4 or 6. So during waking hours, I would get into the habit of periodically just counting my fingers. Come to find out that later in dreams, I would also do the same thing. And that would alert me, as I would find out in the dream, I would have 6 fingers or 7 fingers or 3 fingers. It would alert me to the fact that I was not in the normal reality and I was within the dream, and that would wake up my conscious mind as I was sleeping deep into REM sleep. And then from there, I got really good at staying in the dream, because a lot of times when you wake up inside of a dream, it's so exciting that you will wake yourself up in the real world and the dream will be over. So that was one of the hardest things to accomplish, was staying within the dream, taking deep breaths and being calm, and then existing in that reality and exploring. And I will say that some of these lucid dreams, reality it's way more realistic than it is in real life, because you're hyper aware of everything. I would try to eat food, see if I could taste things. I would talk to different dream characters or entities, which some people think that those are real entities. I'm not convinced of that yet. And of course I would, at certain times I would try to sort of like summon my father to appear in a dream, and that happened several times as well. And then I went to the next level, which was astral projection, which is similar to lucid dreaming, but you're starting from the awake state and doing a deep meditation and supposedly separating your astral body from your physical body. So I decided to give that a whirl. I was very, very skeptical. I was doing these deep meditations early in the morning when I would, wake up from sleep, or at nighttime. I was not having very much luck. I started reading this book by William Buhlman, he did a lot of books on astral projection and OBEs, and I kept with it. And finally, I was doing the meditation and I had some very strange occurrences happen. I entered into the vibrational state. My body was vibrating. This happened several times, went into complete blackness. Some of the stuff that happened during my attempts at astral projection are absolutely mind-blowing. There was a rift in my reality as a human. So everything that happened pre trying to practice astral projection and then everything after. I will tell you that there are realities out there that you can experience that are just as real as what we're experiencing right here, that are somewhere else. Whether they're in your mind, you can feel things, you can touch things, you can feel cold and heat and taste. So I would recommend anyone who finds this sort of stuff intriguing, I want you to know that you can do this stuff all by yourself. You don't have to have some special abilities, or you don't have to be a special person who, like, I'm a gifted psychic person. You could just be a normal person, and if you dedicate yourself to the practice of like lucid dreaming, astral projection, and you give it a legit shot, it takes a little bit of work. But I think that if you stick with it, you're going to experience some things like never before. And that's what makes me appreciate stuff like 976 Evil 2, the Astral Factor, so much. So the last thing I want to say about astral projection and lucid dreaming is, from all of the things that I've tried, my general deduction of what astral projection really is it is a lucid dream. So I think that you are having a lucid dream when you astral project. Now that doesn't mean that your soul or your astral body is just existing in a dream and it doesn't matter. I'm saying it's going someplace else. But what I am saying, when you astral project like the guy in the Astral Factor, you don't end up in this physical reality. A lot of people have tried experiments. I tried some experiments myself. Had my partner write something on a piece of paper, not tell me what it was, stick it on a window, and then when I astral projected, I would go out and I would try to read what the paper said, and it was always wrong. So no one has ever proved that astral projection is actually your astral body separating and existing in this plane of reality. So what I think is going on is you are having a lucid dream about astral projection. And maybe you're going into an astral realm, but you are not going into this reality like the guy in the movie was. So that's my theory on things after dabbling into it. Now, after watching this film, I kind of decided that I want to get back into it, because I kind of like stopped doing it for a while. It was pretty intense when that vibrational state hit, when I did it those couple times. It was some of the most intense physical feelings that I've ever felt within my body, ever. And unexplained supernatural event, legit style. It's real. It just depends how much energy and time you want to commit to taking the astral journey. You could start off, I would say start off more simply with lucid dreaming, do some like Dream Warriors type stuff. They're lucid dreaming in A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. That is the basic definition of that sequence, and they realize they're within that dream. That is a lucid dream. So I would say if they did like a Nightmare on Elm Street, sequel or something like that, they should make it all about lucid dreaming, because I think lucid dreaming would be the key to defeating Freddy Krueger. But I mean, lucid dreaming by people like the Dream Warriors in that film, but lucid dreaming where they were experts and they could really challenge Freddy. They all were basically novices there. That was like their first time realizing they could utilize all of the things in the dream world and probably fucking kick Freddy's ass pretty badly if they were all combining their forces and using ultimate lucid dreaming powers. That would make a great film for that franchise. Let me know if you've ever experienced anything like a lucid dream or dabbled into astral projection or out-of-body experiences. Very, very intrigued about that stuff. All right, so that's it for me today. Can't wait to come back again next time and talk about some more schlocky movies. All right, see you next time.